Thank you all for coming. I was a bit worried that we were going to be a bit thin because we're competing with Syria, and the rooms downstairs are a little bit more accessible. No, thanks for coming, especially after that long plenary, an important one on land release. And thanks for coming. We've got about 60 minutes before you have your lunch break. So we do have translation for Ukraine, English, English, Ukraine, if that's required. And I'd like to thank OSCE for making that possibility available. My name is Guy Rhodes. I work for the World Food Programme in Ukraine. I work on a project in conjunction with the Food and Agricultural Organization, which Tifan here represents. We have an integrated mine action and livelihood program with a goal to revitalize rural communities. And we work in conjunction with 5 NGOs, that's FSD, if I can remember, MPA, MAG, Halo Trust, and also the national operator UDA, represented by EHO at the end of the panel here. We also work very closely in a coordinated fashion with the Center for Humanitarian Demining, and particularly their state compensation project. And Angie represents the Center for Humanitarian Demining and also the State Emergency Services of Ukraine, also known as CESU. It's an abbreviation represented by Sergei. So all of these partners, bar Tifan, are national entities in terms of operations or in government implementing arms. I'd start by just saying a little bit about the context in Ukraine. We've just recently entered the 5th year of the full-scale war started by Russia. So we're talking about mine action in the context of wartime. There's 9 million civilians that have left the country and all remain displaced within the country. Others have not left some of the impacted communities, or they've since returned to rebuild lives and attempt to restore livelihoods within very difficult circumstances. There is a security buffer zone of about 20 kilometers. And within this is from the frontline positions, within this zone, there's no humanitarian mine action activities that are undertaken. But even the areas outside the 20 kilometers are exposed to airstrikes from a range of weapon systems, including from drones. So this side event looks at communities in areas of eastern Ukraine, with a particular focus on Kharkiv, and we've also selected a Gramada of Izium, where there'll be some focus from some of the panelists here. This is an area where we all have programs that deliver interconnected mine action and recovery activities. So we hope during the course of this session to illustrate how needs are identified, how households trigger responses, how land is selected for clearance, and how support, including to survivors, enables people to return to production. We do want to keep a focus on people, and as such, we've got 3 short videos from civilians in some of the most impacted communities, and these will be shown between each of the panelists. So the format for this is that we're going to have presentations, briefs for 5 to 7 minutes from each of the panelists. They'll be in a sequence. Tifan Lucas first, and she's the head of the Mine Action and Rehabilitation Program of FAO, followed by Sergei Riva, who is the director of the Mine Action Department within the State Emergency Services of Ukraine, followed by Angie Condor, who's the head of international cooperation at the Center for Humanitarian Demining, and then followed by Ihor Prus, who is a senior member of the Ukrainian Deminers Association, which is this national NGO. So if everyone sticks to their time and then panelists are obedient, then we will have 10 minutes or so for questions at the end. So if I could just pass the floor to Fan. She will be speaking on understanding needs, data-driven identification. Fan.
Can you hear? Yeah, yes. That's working. So thank you for the introduction, and thank you for everyone that is attending today. I know that we are often speaking of a fatigue regarding the Ukraine case, but I think considering the surfaces, the importance of revitalizing agricultural production and livelihood for the people of the east of Ukraine, I'm really happy to see that the interest is still there. Within the program that we have launched jointly with WFP, our main focus is to revitalize the life in rural areas in Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and Kherson, where we are starting to expand today. With this side event, we wanted to focus a bit on a specific case scenario on Izium, which is a Romada in Kharkiv Oblast. This Hromada has been occupied for many months, and it was the front line during 7 months approximately in 2022 until Ukrainian forces liberated the region. So communities have been severely affected, and when we opened our intervention, we had one issue: how to prioritize the settlements, how to prioritize these villages where agriculture has been disrupted and where people are depending on their production for their own consumption and for surplus sale to the local markets. We had an issue, and those who attended the event yesterday on data-driven prioritization might have heard that already. We had a very important problem, that is everything that was liberated was considered potentially hazardous, that represented millions of hectares, and there was absolutely no data available to understand where mine action should relieve the people in priority. We have created certain data sets. Mainly, we have analyzed with a local organization called the Ukrainian Researcher Society the impact of artillery. So we have mapped in all these 3 oblasts the impact of artillery use. We have also identified which lands are cultivated, which lands are not cultivated. And we have integrated progressively the rest of data sets, meaning that from the understanding of where agriculture was blocked and could not resume because of alleged contamination or proven contamination, surveyed contamination, we've added progressively mine action data, meaning suspected hazardous areas, confirmed hazardous areas, and the land release layers that we could access in IMSMA thanks to the trust of the Ministry of Defense. We have also integrated the mapping of accident that the State Emergency Service transferred to the project, and creating this integrated analysis of what indeed is the situation at the level of a community. We could somehow shortlist the villages that have been the most affected from the perspective of, are they able to farm? Are they able to cultivate in a radius of 2 kilometers, for instance, around the village? And what was the presence of the State Emergency Service up to date? And what has been the concentration of artillery use of shelling on this specific village? So we displayed the formula for you. It's not something that is extremely complicated, as you see. But it's something that makes of this outreach a data-driven process. Of course, data is extremely useful, it's vital, but it has to be checked with the communities. So once we have a first ID based on data of communities that have been the most affected, we exchange with the heads of Hromadas, the heads of settlements, in order to verify this data-driven shortlisting with them and to confirm that indeed these populations are the most in need according to them. And based on this, we start sharing these priorities with our mine action operators, partners of the program, and we also start delivering the livelihood assistance that will allow them to restart cultivation. In this very restricted area that is Izium Hromada, we have supported jointly with WFP 212 farmers. So this includes non-commercial farmers, commercial farmers, and we have provided to date 200,000 USD in the format of inputs for agriculture use. We also provide technical assistance for certain specific vegetables and grain production that is unfortunately also pressured by the climate shock. Thank you. So we created a map on a specific village that is integrating all the data that I just mentioned to you. You see the artillery concentration, you see in green what is cultivated, in red what is not cultivated. You see the spot tasking of SESU in purple, and you see the radius that we are using to understand within 2 kilometers what is cultivated, what is the percentage of land that is cultivated, and what is still blocked due to potential contamination. Just to finish, I think it's a very good example of how mine action is not an intervention, but mine action is an ecosystem. We are working very closely with the State Emergency Service that has been the first responder, and that is a very efficient demand-based service, because you might know that households, they are calling the State Emergency Service. The State Emergency Service is intervening very efficiently. And this exchange of data allows us to understand also what is the what needs we should cover, what remains. So we have quite a dense connection with the beneficiaries of the Center for Humanitarian Demining. You have the numbers on the screen. And our objective is to also facilitate access for the farmers to the compensation scheme that is paid by the government. So you might know that non-technical survey is a prerequisite to access the compensation scheme. One of our objectives is also to provide as much non-technical survey as possible so that everyone would have equal access to this compensation scheme. And we would like also to increase this percentage of farms that have been supported by the State Emergency Service and by FAO and WFP. The number is, I think, 55%. We hope that this will grow, and we hope that at some point everyone that has received service from the State Emergency Service will also be supported for returning to agricultural production. Last but not least, we are also measuring the impact of the work of the State Emergency Service, of the compensation scheme. We follow production after land release, thanks to an algorithm that we have created based on the analysis of satellite imagery. And I will take the opportunity that I see that the US representative is in the room to say that access to good quality satellite imagery is really something that is essential in Ukraine. Without extremely precise satellite imagery, this work is not possible, and we will not also have the capacity to monitor what is the impact in terms of food production of mine action interventions in the country. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Tiffane. What I suggest is we move on to listen to a story from a lady called Larissa, who lives in this community that's shown on this diagram. It's a community which has seen a tremendous amount of destruction. So I will shift to Larissa, and hopefully this will work.
Мене звуть Лариса. Ми проживаємо в селі Кам'янка, Ізюмський район, Харківська область. Війну ми застали вдома. Обстріли з кожним днем почали збільшувались. І тоді уже люди, ми всі, потроху змушені були тікати зі своїх домівок. Я не могла, я впиралась до останнього, тому що у мене було господарство, у мене були корови, кури. І я не розуміла, чому я маю їхати, і куди я маю їхати. І от моя остання крапля була 10 березня, коли в сусідній будинок через дорогу прилетів град, і будинку не стало. Наше село було звільнене 11 вересня, І ми тільки почули цю звістку, ми одразу захотіли приїхати додому, навідатися, подивитися, що там. І ми приїхали, побачили ми дуже жахливу картину. Все село розбите. І наш будинок теж, він був дуже зруйнований. Не було даху, не було стін. І в селі ж, зрозуміло, не було ні світла, ні газу, ніяких, нічого. Все було знищено. Живучи рік в Одесі, ми прийняли для себе рішення, що ми будемо повертатися додому, будемо відбудовувати нашу хату, продовжувати нашу справу, якою ми займалися до війни. Ми дуже добре розуміли, що буде важко, але ми все одно готові були до труднощів, не дивлячись ні на що. Ми повернулися і потихеньку відбудовуємося, потихеньку, як можна сказати, відроджуємось. Без допомоги ми б нічого б не зробили. А завдяки допомозі, яка надходить від фондів, то ми хоч якось маємо можливість триматись на плаву. Була така допомога для підтримки і ведення особистого селянського господарства. Нам надавали кошти, то ми купували курчат, вутят, корма для них. А потім іще надали нам, так як вирощую овочі, то і такого роду була допомога. Тобто це були шланги крапельне зрошування, це були ємність для води. Ми коли повернулися, і я виїхала на базар зі своїми помідорами. І люди підходили: а що за помідори, а звідки помідори? Кажу, з Кам'янки помідори, домашні помідори. Вони так дивувалися, кажуть, як з Кам'янки? Кам'янки немає, а помідори є? Кажу, так. Бачите, помідори є, все добре. Кажу, Кам'янка була, є й буде.
Before we move on to Sergei, just put this in perspective. This village of Kamyanka, looking at the call-outs to CESU in terms of spot tasks and the civilians calling up, it ranks the highest in terms of the numbers of call-outs on the whole database from across Ukraine. So there's been almost 2,000 EOD call-outs for this community. There's been 5,000 items in the settlement alone that have been destroyed over the last 3 years. There are 92 people living in this community from a pre-war total of 900, and there's 20 recorded accidents. That's also with some people passing through, but don't underestimate the impact of this conflict, in Ukraine in some of these communities. So much of the incredible work that's being done on the ground is being done by CESU, the State Emergency Services of Ukraine, and they are certainly the civil backbone of the national EOD response in the country. And with that, I will pass on to Sergei, and there is a translation available with your headsets. Sergei.
Шановні колеги, партнери, доброго дня. До вашої уваги інформація про протимінну діяльність піротехнічних підрозділів Державної служби України з надзвичайних ситуацій, спрямовано на зменшення ризиків від вибухонебезпечних предметів. Як ви вже, я думаю, що знаєте, одним з найбільш негативних наслідків повномасштабного військового вторгнення Росії в Україну є найбільше забруднення територій і населених пунктів вибухонебезпечними предметами, в тому числі забороненими міжнародними конвенціями. Нашими підрозділами з початку повномасштабної війни вже здійснено понад 173 тисячі залучень. Ми ж знешкодили майже 650 тисяч вибухонебезпечних предметів, обстежили майже 200 тисяч квадратних кілометрів території. В системі ДСНС майже 2 тисячі квадратних кілометрів території. В системі ДСНС функціонує 25 сертифікованих операторів протимінної діяльності, 2 органи сертифікації та орган інспектування розмінованих територій. Одним із найважливіших завдань, які ми перед собою ставимо, це відновлення життєдіяльності населених пунктів та обстеження об'єктів критичної інфраструктури. Результати цієї роботи ви можете побачити на цьому слайді. Next slide, please. В рамках меморандуму про взаєморозуміння та співробітництво ДСНС із продовольчої та сільськогосподарської організації ООН в рамках Всесвітньої продовольчої програми здійснювали заходи з відновлення землі та рівномасштабної сільськогосподарської діяльності в районах, що дуже постраждали від війни та на території Харківської області. Піротехнічний підрозділ ДСНС в Харківській області залучається до оперативного розмінування критичної інфраструктури, об'єктів життєзабезпечення, приватних домогосподарств. Зазначене залучення відбувається після надходження телефонних дзвінків на лінію 101 або 102. ДСНС, в свою чергу, поділилася наявною геопростовою інформацією з ФАО про відомості щодо оперативного реагування, здійснені піротехнічними підрозділами, даними про інциденти з вибухонебезпечними предметами серед цивільного населення на території Харківської області за весь період повномасштабного вторгнення. Зазначена інформація дала змогу визначити громади, які зазнали впливу від бойових дій. Крім цього, також оператори протимінної діяльності ДСНС залучаються до гуманітарного розмінування. Окремим напрямом співпраці розглядається можливість залучення фахівців ДСНС для забезпечення безпекового супроводу представників ФАО під час проведення польових досліджень та відбору зразків ґрунту на деокупованих територіях Харківської області. Зазначена взаємодія є ключовим елементом у реалізації порядку визначення зон ризикового землеробства та забезпечує науково-ґрунтований підхід до відновлення аграрного потенціалу України. Next slide, please. За сприяння міжнародних партнерам, станом на сьогодні в ДСНС знаходиться найбільший парк машин механізованого розмінування, який складає 95 машин різних типів. За допомогою зазначеної техніки на цей час проведено розмінування понад 5 тисяч гектарів території, з яких понад 2500 в Харківській області, під час чого відбулося понад 11 тисяч випадків детонації боєприпасів. На жаль, у 2025 році ми втратили 2 машини механізованого розмінування, які були знищені FPV-дронами окупаційних військ Росії на відстані понад 20 кілометрів від лінії бойового зіткнення. Враховуючи наявність зазначеного парку техніки для розмінування, ДСНС в Полтавській області створила логістичний ремонтний хаб для машин механізованого розмінування, на базі якого локалізовано виробництво швидкозношуваних елементів, робочих органів і деяких типів машин. З метою запобігання нещасних випадків серед місцевого населення приділяється особлива увага проведенню просвітницької діяльності з питань мінної безпеки. Підрозділом ДСНС з початку широкомасштабного вторгнення проведено майже 70 тисяч заходів з інформування населення, яким було охоплено понад 2,5 мільйони осіб. З 2023 року за допомогою міжнародних партнерів ДСНС створено 13 мобільних класів змінної безпеки для проведення навчання населення у важкодоступних місцях. На цей час мобільними класами здійснено понад 5 тисяч заходів з просвітницької діяльності, якими охоплено понад 300 тисяч осіб. З метою підвищення обізнаності змінної безпеки з початку широкомасштабного вторгнення російських військ на територію Харківської області з різними віковими та гендерними категоріями населення проведено 3400 інформаційних та освітніх заходів, якими охоплено 140 тисяч осіб, серед яких понад 85 тисяч дітей і понад 55 тисяч дорослих чоловіків і жінок. Розроблено, поширено більше 87 тисяч інформаційних матеріалів. Для підвищення мобільності роботи груп із навчання населення ризикам, пов'язаним із ВНП в Харківській області, функціонує клас мінної безпеки, яким проведено 522 заходи та охоплено понад 28 тисяч осіб. В рамках співпраці з ФАО під час роздачі адресної продовольчої допомоги у кожний з ящиків з продуктами вкладалася друкована інформація про ризики, пов'язані з вибухонебезпечними предметами. Ми впевнені, що завдяки консолідації спільних зусиль та об'єднаній підтримці з боку світової спільноти ми очистимо забруднені землі від залишків війни та відбудуємо нашу країну. Дякую за увагу.
Thank you, Sergey. Just to highlight a couple of the figures, I mean, they're working throughout the country, of course, and it's a small part of the work of CESU that overlaps with the particular project that we have, WFP and FAO, but of 216 communities that have been prioritized by the project, the CESU teams have removed and destroyed 36,000 items of explosive ordnance. Perhaps I also highlight on this slide as well the issue of the food boxes. WFP is the world's largest humanitarian organization, and they've got a significant footprint in Ukraine. We've distributed 26 million food boxes, since the start of the full-scale invasion. And on the last 500,000, we've had leaflets from CESU included in the top of the box This is very low budget. It's just the printing of the materials because all the logistics happen anyway. These boxes are barcoded. We know where they go. We know the beneficiaries, so it's very easy to get disaggregated data and maps of where these information is going. There's also opportunities with some of the partner NGOs that are doing risk education at the distribution points when people are waiting to pick up their boxes. But certainly when it comes to CESU, they can work in this buffer zone where there are civilians still living. The distribution of the boxes also go to frontline communities, over 1,000. So this is a great area of collaboration with CESU. So thank you very much, Sergey. We will move on to the next video, which is another Sergey, who's a farmer in Izium Gramada.
Ми 25 років займалися фермерським господарством в селі Студенок. Я заїхав сюди зовсім молодим. На цьому полі до війни ми займалися, в останні часи вирощували зернові, а до цього вирощували овоща, такі як борщовий набір. Ми бачимо на цьому полі от такі прильоти, це прильоти від мін. Вони от били по Студенку, і на ці поля прилітали міни, гради. Працювали фіздічники, мені було взагалі не страшно сідати в трактор і заїхати і обробити це поле. Вони працювали віддано, кожний сантиметр проходили з міношукачами, щупами і витягували до малейшого осколочка. Тобто я в них впевнений, я задоволений, але хотілося, щоб як можна більше площі розміновувалося, і не тільки для мене, і для інших фермерів, для того, щоб відновлювалося село, жило, оживало, щоб повертались люди і цим самим ми могли піднімати свою економіку і економіку держави. Відчуття того, що земля буде повертатись до обробітку, одне задоволення. От.
Okay, a bit shorter. So just to emphasize, this is one of 421 farms that the project is supporting. I would say, and this is a reflection of the developments, the fast-moving developments. This farmer, Sergey, managed to sow seeds and have a good harvest last year, but he hasn't sown his seeds this year because of the compromise, the shifting of the buffer zone. So a reflection of some of the challenges there. And I would say as a whole, of the farmers that we prioritized 3 years ago, about a quarter are now at risk. Not that we've done large clearance activities in these frontline farms, but just to say that we won't be prioritizing clearance in some of these areas. So I will then pass the floor now to Andrei Kondor of the Center for Humanitarian Demining. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Dear partners, colleagues, it's a pleasure being here today to discuss the positive impact demining is making on a local level. I represent the State Institution Center for Humanitarian Demining. One of our main tasks as of today is managing the state-funded compensation scheme, so-called compensation scheme, under which farmers that have contaminated land in use can apply for demining. After validation of such applications, our center conducts open public tenders for demining. When the operations and quality control procedures are completed, the center makes payments to the operators under the contract signed. Can you turn on the next slide, please? And the next one. That's fine. Kharkiv region of Ukraine remains one of the key regions, both in terms of the scale of landmine contamination and the volume of ongoing humanitarian demining operations. In particular, the Izium community, located close to the front line, as Guy said, faces one of the most widespread contamination of agricultural land with explosive hazards. For local residents, this means not only constant threat to life, but also the loss of their primary sources of income. Despite the complexity of the situation, the community is gradually recovering. In 2025, the total area of land recovered in this community alone under the compensation scheme reached approximately 700 hectares, as you can see on the slide. Additionally, almost 1,300 hectares were cleared by other operators outside the compensation scheme scope. For the community's residents, these results are critically important. Each cleared hectare is not just land, but an opportunity to resume farming and restore livelihoods. However, it's not only agricultural land that remains hazardous. Parts of social infrastructure, including schools, kindergartens, and public spaces, have yet to be cleared. Next slide, please. But we are working on this part too. An important component of this work was the introduction of innovative approaches to planning demining and broader recovery. Within the pilot project, a community-driven approach to setting recovery priorities is being implemented. The project is carried out with the support of the Japan International Cooperation Agency and the Ministry of Economy, Environment and Agriculture of Ukraine. In particular, an online survey was conducted among residents to identify priority objects for recovery, an approach that ensures real community needs are taken into account. This approach is supported by the innovative digital system called GRID, Ground Rehabilitation Through Innovation Technologies, the core function of which is the automated prioritization of areas for humanitarian demining. GRID analyzes large datasets to identify where demining efforts will deliver the greatest immediate benefit to communities and the economy. It enables evidence-based prioritization grounded in data rather than assumptions. Within the pilot project, the system is applied not only to demining, but also to the broader process of integrated community recovery, as was mentioned. Dear colleagues, these are the steps that we are taking on a local level. But thinking about this, we might ask ourselves, how are these activities aligned with the broader context? And is there any wider purpose in sight at all? To answer these questions, I want to build an argument for two specific messages. And the first of these messages is, impact of demining has both a specific local dimension and a global reach. What exactly do I mean by this? The mining of Ukraine's land is not only about Ukrainian farmers and Ukrainian communities. It is also about specific families and communities in other, often faraway countries. Historically, Ukraine was considered to be a breadbasket of Europe. It was, however, the logic of the 19th century. In the 20th and the 21st centuries, Ukraine became a food basket for a much larger part of the world, including many global South countries. And this is from where responsibility also comes from. We care not only about our population, we also care about other countries which face risks of shortage of food, their communities, families, children. This is how farming land returned back to productive use, including in the Izum community in the Kharkiv region, contributes to food security, and not just in an abstract sense, but to food security of hundreds of thousands of families all over the world. Demined by SESO units, NGOs, or commercial mine action operators under the compensation scheme, such land then produces crops that eventually might turn into baked bread in Syria, cornflakes in Spain, or grows in India, in various places located in thousands of miles from Ukraine. And the second message, benefits of multilateralism should not be taken for granted. Nowadays, as you know very well, multilateralism does not have a very good time. However, it at the same time only additionally underlines all the benefits it brings. For instance, it is FAO that supports farmers in restoring their agricultural production on demined territories, including in the Izum community. It is WFP that is able to deliver grown crops to any place in the world where it is needed the most. A large part of this work comes unnoticed, but it should never be taken for granted. Without all this work, the world would have been a much worse place. I would like to sincerely thank Mr. Rhodes and Ms. Lucas and the organizations they represent for all their efforts. These efforts should never be underestimated. Ultimately, by complementing activities of state actors, operators, and UN agencies, we jointly make sure that the land in various parts of Ukraine is not just cleared, but returned to productive use, delivering very specific positive outcomes both locally and globally. To address such complex challenges, we need each other, and we need to cooperate proactively, making this a win-win outcome for everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrzej. If I can just pick up on your reference there to the markets. I mean, this is really important for this full cycle of mine action, not just to focus on the priorities to make sure the work's happening in the right place, but through our project as well, half the budget is non-mine action inputs to ensure that the farmers, the land users, have the non-mine action assets and inputs to help maximize or to promote their ability to return to production, but also to ensure that the linkages to markets are promoted. And there's local markets, but there's also the international ones. And WFP has exported, I think it's 1.5 million tons of grain since the start of the war, 25 different vessels. This is a huge program that has nothing to do with me, but this traceability of looking at the farmers and completing the story of produce being generated through the project to vessels that then go under perhaps the Grain from Ukraine initiative to Syria, to Gaza, to Africa, is a great story and one that we're strengthening the whole time. I would like to thank also them, the Centre for Humanitarian Demining and the government as well for this excellent initiative of the compensation scheme. It's one that we're absolutely committed to help strengthen, assist with that system, and support this win-win scenario with the seeds and fertilizer provision on the back of clearance that's done by mostly commercial operators. So we have one more video. This is from a beekeeper, also called Sergey, and this is a short video explaining how he's got back to his livelihood.
Їх у нас було до війни 43, приїхали, осталось 7. Починали із 7 вуликів.
Це дуже було жахливо. Почалось таке в селі твориться, що це прийшлося все бросати. І тут, коли вернулися, взагалі, Армагеддон був. І пасіка, ми раді, що вона в нас залишилась. Для нас це мед, це життя. Почав займатися в нас це син, а потім він приобщив, так сказати, батька до цього діла. Батько спочатку боявся, але тепер і батько втягнувся, це діло і я допомагаю. 40 ліпістків тут було по території. Підірвався на лепестку за двором, оце з глазами. Теж 3 операції. – 90 чоловік почти у нашому селі живе.
Робимо для того, щоб вижити. Робот нема, їх не буде.
Вийдеш на огород, свині, кури. Сестра моя каже, чого ви туди вернулися? Ми додому повернулися. Що буде далі, звісно. А я сподіваюся, що наше село відродиться, щоб не було війни, це по-перше. Просто, щоб не було страху. Це такі мрії. Робимо, живемо і надіємося на краще.
I've actually got some of the honey here from Sergey and his wife, so I've got enough here, I think, to present to anyone who gives a question at the end, in that order till we run out, if we have space. But yeah, just to highlight with this particular example and story, he injured his eye by doing clearance himself, and there's lots of the population in some of these affected communities who undertake this risky business. This particular family in Sergey was supported by UDA with their victim assistant program to allow him to go for an operation. So this seems an appropriate entry point to introduce the last speaker, Igor, with the UDA program. I should say that he stepped in at the last minute. It was Timur, his boss, that was supposed to be here. So good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for hosting me here today. My name is Bruce, and I work for UDA. I would like to speak about our experience in Ukraine in supporting mine victims and survivors. Our presentation is called Stories of Resilience because behind every number there is a story, there is a real family, and there is a real person and its life. Can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. Ukraine is one of the most mine-contaminated countries in the world right now. Since 2023, UDA has created a nationwide system to support mine victims in Ukraine. Our database now includes more than 3,800 registered people affected by explosive hazards. Every month, we receive between 70 and 250 new applications. Most needs are in frontline regions, but we do help people all across the Ukraine. I feel there is a question: how do people reach us? So, firstly, it can be by themselves through the online. You can scan the QR code, which is right about my back. Secondly, many people are referenced to us by local authorities, by our partners, partner NGOs, and partners from INGOs. And the third one is our coordinators verify information in the field and assess people's needs directly. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the top 10 regions in our database by number of mine victims. The highest numbers are in Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Kherson regions. This is expected as these areas have faced active hostiles, occupations, shellings, and heavy contamination. Next one, please. Our support process is simple and practical. So firstly, a person submits an application, then we check documents and register them into our database. After that, we assess their needs, then we provide support directly or connect them with specialized services, and finally, we follow up to make sure that assistance was useful. Next one, please. From 2023 to 2026, we achieved many important results. So 3,332 people received cash assistance, but this information was outdated 1 week ago. Now it's more than 3,400 people. More than 1,000 people received psychological support. 45 people received legal assistance, and 7 projects were successfully implemented on MVA. That's not counting the ongoing projects. These results were made possible through strong collaboration with our partners, with local NGOs and international NGOs. The next one, please. So now I would like to share the story about my colleague, Dmytro Slepkany. He's a part of UDA right now. Dmytro was a deminer who lost his sight because of mine explosions. In 2023, he came to UDA as a survivor asking for help. He completed rehabilitation, including mobility training, daily life skills, and digital tools. Later he applied for a job at UDA, as I mentioned before, and now he's a part of our team. Dmytro works with us as a humanitarian coordinator and helps other mine victims. His story shows that support can change lives. A person who once needed help is now offering the help. So many thanks to Dmytro, and all the applause that will be in the end are all going to him. So to conclude, Ukraine's experience shows that even during war, people can rebuild their lives. Thank you for your attention, and I want to emphasize that we encourage organizations to step into this field of MVA, and the same donors to support organizations and my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Igor. I can see the panelists have been quite compliant. We do have time for questions. I would like to just say a little bit about UDA, this national NGO in Ukraine, which is very well established. It's quite well resourced. You've received $4 million from the government of the Netherlands. There's also a healthy grant, not to that size, but from the WFP. For the support in this project, but they really are a capable NGO which may well be looking at working overseas also at some stage. And on this issue of localization, there was also a side event at 9 o'clock this morning, and I think we feel there's the civil society, you know, which is strong in Ukraine. There's the government implementing arms, which should not be forgotten in terms of the localization and sustainability and the work that CESU does and has done for decades and will remain. in place to be able to deliver on long-term needs from communities. And then there's also these mechanisms of market place and support for the commercial sector, which sometimes is difficult for some partners, some donors to support directly for the clearance. Others, it's not a problem, but certainly in strengthening that system, which is a real great feather in the cap, I think, of Ukraine, and when it comes to sustainability and deliverable through national capacities. So, can I open the floor for questions? If you have a question, please could you state your name and your organization and who, if anyone, the question is directed at, please.
Yeah, so I'm asking to get the honey in the end. My name is Fawaz Farah. I work for ICRC currently in Myanmar, but I worked previously 4 years in Ukraine, hence why I am here. Mr. Rhodes, you've alluded to the fact that some of the areas that were deemed to be safe earlier, then they became closer to the front line, and hence we cannot implement projects anymore. And I've seen Ms. Lucas with a formula. Nothing was mentioned to the proximity of to the front line or the active hostilities. Is there any other tool to assess this or to predict how things will be going in the future, or it is simply a risk that we are willing to take? And I ask because it's not only the problem in Myanmar, but in many other contexts we face the same problem. Doing relief projects versus long and sustainable agro projects. And thank you.
So this formula applies to any zone that is eligible to humanitarian mine action, meaning everything that is not in the 20-kilometer buffer zone. But yes, as you mentioned, this buffer zone unfortunately is evolving. In principle, we are applying what is called an integrated context analysis that is reviewed every 3 months approximately for the 3 oblasts to understand a bit the dynamics. And there is also quite a lot of information coming from the government on the evolution of the line. Most of the time, what we are observing, for instance, in this village, is rather that the life that is close to the front, meaning it's not that these fields are occupied, it's more that there is more military activity that there used to be, meaning Ukrainian soldiers need some places to train, sometimes they need to repair also their vehicles, and we know that this is also something that can create additional risks of being targeted. They park their military vehicles, then they leave it in the hangar of the farm, and then suddenly you have accident. So that's more the nature of this evolution to date and what Guy mentioned. We try to consider the evolution of the line, but it's something that unfortunately is a bit out of our control.
Yeah, if I may comment a little bit from the government perspective, well, we cannot predict it. Even if we could, it's classified information about the movement of the front line. Of course, we can't. But that being said, of course, the mine operators themselves and the Mine Action Center under the Ministry of Defense, it's the institution which is issuing all the task orders. They, of course, keep everything in mind. And when they are letting any operator to do whatever operation in whatever place, of course, they are assessing the security situation. And of course, from the common sense perspective, they won't let the operator work in an area which is too dangerous at a certain moment. So that's more or less how it works.
If I could add, I mean, as we're aware, there's different mine action approaches. And I think when you're dealing in a country at war, there is this uncertainty that you have to deal with. And we're more likely to ensure that there's risk education activities, lighter footprints, which you're not risking so much investment. There's NTS work, which can continue to go, and is an ongoing process. In many of the communities, land isn't necessarily blocked. It's single items that require being dealt with from EOD spot tasks. So again, it's not high expense, and we have tremendous capacity, such as CESU, who can respond to that type of contamination to make the environment safer for these communities. When it comes to large-scale clearance, the example that we saw the video of Sergei the farmer, that's very unusual. You know, we're normally very careful at ensuring, particularly at the moment, that large tasks, priorities are way well back from the 20 kilometers just to manage that risk somewhat. More honey? That's the same organization, isn't it?
Split it.
No, okay.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Caitlin Hodge. I'm with Humanity Inclusion, or Handicap International as we're known in Ukraine still. I was really happy to hear many of the presentations touching on the importance of data and evidence-based decision making. So I have two small questions, both related to data. First, for FAO, I was just wondering where you're sourcing the satellite data from and if you're finding it of a high enough quality. And my second question is for UDA. So like you, like every other organization, we're collecting victim data, as you presented. But there have been many discussions on the margins of this meeting about the parallel data collection efforts. I'm interrogating myself. What are we doing with this data that there is already an official source? So I'm just wondering from your side on UDA, do you see a gap in the official data that is available on victims? And kind of what are you relying on through your own organizational database that you keep? Thank you.
In terms of access to satellite imagery, we've been lucky enough to benefit from a donation from Maxar. So for the first analysis, we could create data with access to high-resolution imagery from Maxar. And based on the data that we created, we could issue algorithm. And that's really something that was important. Unfortunately, this access has been disrupted. And that's why I wanted to reiterate that access to quality imagery is vital. We were lucky in this case scenario that we could make the first preliminary analysis, the one that is the basis for algorithm creation before this access was disrupted, but that's really important indeed. And further, we have an agreement with the sister agency, UNITAR, that is also providing a specific access to imagery, but it's way it's a very long administrative process. And it's something that can't be really an option for the government. So we are still looking for a way we could transfer this methodology to the government, but together with the capacity to access the same imageries. And that's very important for the prioritization system for the future.
And regarding the question to database, so basically, yeah, we do have our own database that we don't share, but in case, for instance, we see that the matter is urgent, we just transfer this to our partners, for instance, DRC and others, right? And they do have their own database. They can check whether they have this person credentials there, or whether it's certainly new for their system, and that's it. We don't do this like in cash, like in UCT, cash transfer, right? Duplication in MVA is ordinary thing if the question is about this.
Okay, we've got 2 honeys gone, 2 more to go. Anyone with a question or a comment? Nigel.
Thank you, Guy. I'm Nigel Elway. I'm director of the Revive campaign. I'm also an advisor in the UK Parliament on the impact of explosive weapons. We have an academic partnership with Stirling University. We published a research report a few years ago, just after the beginning of the conflict, on the psychological impact of Putin's invasion. We've just produced our second research on Ukraine, which relates to the discussions that we've had today on the changes in behavior of people impacted by explosive weapons. We've talked about, or you talked about the agricultural perspective and the beekeeper who was injured by doing his own mine clearance work. There's some fascinating examples in this report, and I have several copies to give people if they want. Our focus is to develop academically robust statistics and facts to present to parliamentarians. This report we launched in the UK Parliament to a delegation of Ukrainian parliamentarians. It's gone to 600 odd UK MPs and 800 odd members of the House of Lords. This is not the last piece of research we will be doing on Ukraine. Very keen on looking at explosive ordnance risk education to help develop more safe behaviours within the country. So, as I say, we've got copies of this. It's available on our website, and we look forward to working with institutions in Ukraine on our next piece of research. Thank you, Guy.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Okay, final question. Perfect. Okay, we've got one to keep.
And
he doesn't have one. Okay. Well, I'd just like to end by thanking the panelists, Tifan, Sergey, Andrei, and Ihor, for their preparation for this. Also for the interpreter, Arena and Louise for her technical support. And I just wish you a pleasant lunch, a successful rest of the end of the meeting, and a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.